Welcome to the Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Hany Rambod, and I'm here with my co-host, Austin, and we have a special guest today. And no, he is not a competitive bodybuilder, but one day I think you might want to actually compete at some point, right, Nicky?
I think I can make it happen.
I think you could too. He's got a great physique on him. Nicky Rod just competed in the ADCC Brazilian World Championship in Las Vegas, going up against a great legend in the finals, Gordon Ryan. And dude, you so impressed by what you went through. I know that you're obviously always wanting to win that gold medal. You got the silver medal, and just how you feeling, man? I mean, it's been about a week and a half now, right? 2 weeks almost?
Yeah, about a week and some change. I feel good. I mean, competition's always tough, and for sure you want to get your hand raised every match. Definitely stings getting 2 silvers back to back. And the sport's so close sometimes, like it's really just about, making the correct decisions at the right time. And, like how many reps do you have in these sequences in this, these certain spots. So, I mean, typically we leave the talking to the mat. But yeah, it's a tough sport, and you just got to keep getting better and keep going. Yeah.
And the point of you are not only doing this, but you're also training a little bit of bodybuilding style too. And one of the reasons why we brought you on to Team Evagen Elite was because of the fact of the matter is that you not only look the part, I mean, you look like you could literally do a show, like a men's physique show, and you're 6 foot, what, 1?
Yeah, I'm about 6'2.5", 6'3",
okay.
About 230 pounds. And honestly, I found bodybuilding before I found jiu-jitsu. I wrestled in New Jersey since I was like 11, 12 years old. And the second I finished my last wrestling match in high school, I felt like I lost the match because I was weaker than the guy. So I was like, all right, never again. I'm just going to start.
What weight class did you wrestle?
I wrestled 170 in high school my senior year. So I cut from like 185-ish to 170 pounds. And then immediately I was like, all right, watching YouTube videos, trying to figure out, just getting all the free information online as I could to try to figure out how to get as big as possible.
Well, Nicky, you're 26, right?
Yes.
You're 26 years old. High school was 10 years ago. And during the time, who were the people you looked up to in bodybuilding?
So I'd watch guys like, what's the guy? C-Bum. He's a competitor now.
What's that guy?
Small competitor.
Yeah,
that's a guy.
I'd watch the Bradley Martin, some of the YouTubers, just like, I was just more, I'd pay attention to a little bit of everybody and just take in as much information as I could, because it was all kind of the same thing, but everybody had their like little take on stuff, like what you should eat, how much you should eat to be getting big as possible. Like, some people would say 1 gram per pound. Some people say 1.5 grams per pound of protein. So like, I don't know, just kind of figured out like that. But yeah, I guess I've been lifting for like almost 10 years now. And probably within the first 6 months, I put on like, I don't know, I must have blew up from, I was cutting to 170 to walking around like 220. So like the reaction that my body had at 17 years old for lifting was insane.
Those newbie gains.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, newbie gains for sure. And and immediately as I started like lifting good, like kind of learning, I focused on hypertrophy training and eating, tons of protein, tons of calories from the jump. So I think that's definitely really important.
No, and what's really cool about that is, did you see the instantaneous gratification of that when you started to get really strong and putting on that size and that strength?
For sure, I would see like the overall gains within a few weeks, but like even the pump, like if I trained arms, like in 10 minutes of me training arms, I'm like, my arms doubled in size. So like, why wouldn't I want to look like this all the time? So it was very addicting to me, because I was like the immediate gratification. I was like, if I can just go to the gym and I get bigger, like almost instantly, I'll take that, so.
Sure. And so when did you start getting into competitive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
So June of 2018, I decided to start training jiu-jitsu, and I was I still am signed with Wilhelmina Models out in New York. So my goal with training jiu-jitsu, I was like, I'll just get in better shape for these photo shoots. And by the second week of training, I entered a local competition. I beat some local black belts and some guys that are supposed to be pretty good. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll start training seriously. So I went from taking it kind of mediocrely to training every day. And it's been, I've trained 7 days a week for almost 4 years now. And my rise to the top was kind of fast, because within the first year and a half, I was in the first ADCC. So like Abu Dhabi ADCC World Championships is the equivalent of the Olympics of jiu-jitsu. If you win ADCC, you take gold in your weight class. You're the best grappler in your weight class in the world.
In the world,
period.
So that in a year and a half.
So yeah, so I was able to win the West Coast trials in the U.S., which was in Burbank at the time. So in order to make it to ADCC, you have trials. There's 2 trials in the U.S. and a couple trials in all the other countries. And so I win the trials with 8 months of jiu-jitsu, and then I make it to ADCC, and I end up taking second with about a year and a half. So fast forward to now, 4 years later, I take second again, which is a bit rough, but definitely harder competition.
For those that don't know, again, it's only the ADCC is every 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's not like the Olympia we have every year. It's literally every other year. And there's a lot of other tournaments that they have, but this particular one, which everyone is ranked who is best, is every other year. So you're not going to be able to get back right on the horse next year and try to, reclaim or claim a title, but have to actually wait 2 more years before you do it all over again.
Yeah. So it's bittersweet because it is a long time, but it's also 2 years to get better.
Right.
You have 2 years to study your opponents, study the kind of scenarios that you're going to get into and throughout these sequences in grappling. So, it's going to be 2 years of hard fought progress before the next world championship.
Do you feel that when you started, the reason why you did so well is just because of your wrestling background?
Well, not only the wrestling background, like that. Yes, I would say that was a huge part of it. Having a wrestling base, like granted, I wasn't the best wrestler in the country. I was mediocre high school wrestler. Like I made it to the state tournament in Jersey. I never placed. I did a year in college, and I took like 4th in regions so I didn't even make it to nationals. But throughout this time, I definitely kept learning, kept progressing. But what really set me apart from most other grappling athletes is that I was very dedicated, and lifting, I feel like, gave me a schedule, because it wasn't like, all right, go to practice and then you're done. It's like, all right, you always have to make sure you're fueling your body because you have another workout at the end of the day. You have to finish your day with a lift. So that kind of gave me structure. And it's like everything else that comes along with needing to lift after practice. You need to eat right. You need to make sure you get your sleep. So I think just being aware of those little things and putting it all together, that's definitely what helped me get good.
Did you play any other sports?
Man, I did the typical, like in elementary school, t-ball or baseball, elementary school. Maybe I played a little bit of football, but I was scrawny. Like in high school, I was pretty tall and skinny. But what really stuck with me is I remember the first time I ever walked in the wrestling practice. It was just the hardest thing I ever did, and I always wanted to go back.
Was that your freshman year, or was
no? I started about 12 years old, like in middle schoolish. It's 6th grade, 7th grade, something like that. And I remember my neighbor's dad was like the local wrestling coach, and I was always a little standoffish because I was like, dudes in tights, I don't know.
How about dudes in speedos?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say bodybuilding's a little bit oiled up on stage. It's a little bit further.
Yeah. But I mean, you get past it. Yeah. But for sure, my wrestling base is why I'm so good. But there's a lot of other things that accumulate to create extreme success.
So if you had to go on and you had to pick either WWE or MMA, which one would it be?
Oh, I'm going WWE because I'm just a bit too pretty to get punched in the face.
Dang. There you go. All right.
I think I can make pretty good money WWE, and to fake fight versus real fight,
Yeah. I mean, it still beats up your body.
It's fake fighting?
Yeah. It's not fake fighting. It's choreographed to a degree.
Whoa.
Right. But it still beats you up.
Yeah.
As Triple H told me once, it's like being in a car wreck 3 days a week. Or 4, depending on what your split you're on.
Yeah, but if you're MMA fighting, you're in practice, you're going in car wrecks.
It's just every day.
Like it's not just the fights in the cage; it's the fights in the gym. You have to fight to get good.
Well, it's like Mike Tyson said: everybody had a plan until you get punched in the face.
Very true.
Everybody has a plan and that's how it works. But so wrestling obviously helped you tremendously.
Yeah.
Did you end up doing anything like the state level or anything in high school, or just
high school? I made it to states. I won like a couple matches. I never won regions. I won I won districts to make the regions. But I honestly got really good wrestling after high school because I had the access to better coaches. So pretty much when I started jiu-jitsu, I also started training wrestling at NJRTC. So if you're a fan of like NCAA wrestling or even freestyle wrestling, you know the name Reese Humphrey. Reese Humphrey is an American wrestler. He's won I believe USA Open a couple times at the veteran level, and he's just a wizard on the mat. Has a very large variety of knowledge when it comes to wrestling, as well as his teammates. So I was there once or twice a week for the first like 2 years of my grappling career. I would drive to New York and I would drive to Princeton weekly to get my training in, and he helped my wrestling tremendously. And then I just had the combination of Reese and then my jiu-jitsu coach, which is John Danaher, which is, if you don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, John Danaher he's
a legend,
the absolute legend of the jiu-jitsu community, but by definition, he's the best coach to ever live. He's the kind of guy that spends endless hours in the gym training his athletes, in addition to going home studying, right? He's not wasting time. He goes home, he studies opponents, he studies other crafts of martial arts to try to just gain as much knowledge as possible and reflect that amongst his team.
I've never thought of doing that.
No.
At all.
Yeah, you should get into it. I think it could be a pretty good personal trainer, actually, if you kind of put your mind to it.
I think 24-hour fitness is hiring.
Yeah, you can have one of the polo shirts on, and it's like, I feel like it's another sport that's similar to bodybuilding, where it's like all encompassing. Like
it is, especially at this level.
Yes,
because John is known to try to work on people that are really good and make them great, and make people from great to legendary. And he really knows how to level up. And again, even though that's not my realm, but I've become more into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ever since we brought on Nicky a year ago, and a little over a year ago, actually. And what we're doing now is eating it. Yeah, he's a model. Yeah, he's got a good physique. And when we started, actually we met, I don't think we've told the story. We met through Jason Kalipa, who is a good friend of mine who lived literally 10 minutes away from me in Los Gatos, and he has NC Fit, and he was one of the original CrossFit Games champions. And he was in Austin when we were there, where there was a competition. Andre was competing last year in Austin, and he was out there to roll around with you and a couple of the other guys. And then he's like, "Hey, I want you to meet my friend Nicky." And I go, "Who is he?" And he shows me his Instagram page, and it says Black Belt Slayer. I was like,
what a name.
Yeah. It's like your nickname, right?
Yeah. Black Belt Slayer. It's just because I was like the only blue belt to ever, medal in ADCC. And I had to beat multiple ADCC champs to make it in there, just with limited knowledge. So it's name stuck with me a little bit.
Right. Because right now, what belt are you?
Well, I'm a brown belt. Yeah, I'm a brown belt now. But I mean, it can be argued, like if you're talking about pure ability to compete and win, I was probably a black belt since, I started close to the start of my jiu-jitsu career. But if you're talking about pure knowledge, like that comes much later. Like I would say, yeah, I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, black belt in competition.
That's awesome. And when I saw that and I was looking at it and I go, yeah, there's not that many guys with crazy physiques in the martial arts game, and I go look around and I go, okay, well, and then in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game, I started looking at it and there was a handful of guys that got good physiques. And when I started noticing that, I said, there's a couple of guys that are super jacked.
Yeah.
And obviously Gordon in the last year, I saw he was changing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And he's put on some size.
Oh yeah. Some of these athletes have the ability to put on muscle, like talking like 15 pounds in like 3 months and be shredded. It's crazy.
Right. So but they don't test in that association, correct?
No. Anti-test.
Anti-test. They're like, you're natty, you're out.
You mean test for creatine, right?
They'll do like this. They're like, are you greasing before your match? And they'll touch you. And they'll be like, oh, you're good. But they won't test for PEDs. They'll see if somebody's slippery with no PEDs.
So wait a minute. They will literally test you to see if you put a little extra
Pam.
Yeah.
Or you're putting a little
coconut butter or something. They'll see if you got it on there. But PEDs you're good. But if you're slippery, you got to go.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a balance.
Yeah, exactly. Priorities. Testing for the right things.
It's like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
On steroids.
Well. Yeah,
there you go.
Quite literally. Yeah.
But you can't have that extra virgin olive oil. A little extra coming out your pores. It must be coming out your pores.
Yeah. The gear definitely has its place, but I'm just a little bit fearful of the like kids that are like 18, 19, and they think they have to do steroids to become the best. It's like you really have to get that knowledge first, and then you can start taking over.
You know, we talk about the same thing in bodybuilding, that what you got to do is you got to build a good enough base. It's like building out a car to go on the racetrack. You can't start off with a Toyota and then just throw a supercharger on there. You're going to blow the motor. If you want to turn around and be able to create a good foundation, you need to get the fundamentals. I think wrestling, making sure that you have the right techniques, working with other Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, I mean, obviously not everybody has access to Danaher, but if you have the ability to work with local people that can work to be able to get your skill set higher, you do that. And then later, once you want to do that, make that step to go into a PED type of situation. As long as you have the fundamentals, I think it's almost like anything. You want to be able to have the fundamentals early on because you don't want to supercharge a shit box.
Yes, I agree. And I feel like I'm a natty athlete. I've always been in a very dirty sport, so there's definitely temptation. But I would definitely want to hit my natural like peak before, you know, I dip into the world of PEDs, because I feel like there's kind of hard to turn away, because like once you hit that, like
I was going to ask you, isn't that like tempting for you?
It's definitely tempting, because I see the quick changes in people's physiques. But like, it would be nice to look that good all the time. But then I feel like sometimes, I could be wrong, I feel like sometimes their lows are lower, to where like my mentality is like my opponent has to do a cycle to be ready to compete. I can go right now, all the time, all year long.
Right, because you don't have to peak, or you got to deal with PCT.
My peak is like right before practice. I feel here, have a crash after practice, eat food, coffee, 30-minute rest. I'm back up here, crash after practice again.
So actually, I was kind of curious on that, because obviously in bodybuilding, the difference between natural and enhanced is night and day difference, massive difference. Now, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, is there that, because it's something so technique based, it's something now, of course, you can maybe get a little bit leaner but have more muscle heading into that, whatever the weight cap is or whatever. But like, I'm sitting here wondering, like, is there that large of a difference when it comes to an enhanced athlete in that sport? Is it?
I would say 1000%,
really?
Because I've trained with, you know, tons of athletes around the world, around the country in jiu-jitsu. And like, you take a 230-pound guy that is natural and a 230-pound guy that is enhanced, it is a different animal. You're talking about my skin is soft and malleable. You can't push into a brick wall. You know what I mean? Some of these guys have a pump 24/7. You can feel like the strength is it's different. It's definitely different. I feel like it's almost like you become a bit of an animal. Like, you ever touch like a 100-pound pit bull? Like, they feel like a steel, you know? And so that's kind of like, you can definitely change your DNA. And
of course, increase recovery time. And all
I think that's where I would see it the most. But you made a good point. If you're going over and you're seeing some of the top guys, like the person that the super fight with Gordon had with Andre.
Yeah.
Right. Andre's got no neck.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal traps. He
has triangle, shoulders to ears.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
that's it.
Yeah, take like Marcus Rule, right? Marcus Rule, had this gigantic trap, and he was trying to choke him out the whole time. And he's definitely much more jacked than Gordon, but what you tell me, break down that fight a little bit, because you're a third party on that, because before going into the fight, because I do want to talk to you about the fight with Gordon, with you and him.
Yeah.
But when you watch that fight, did you end up?
Yeah. So Gordon Ryan versus Andre Galvo.
And I call these guys. So again, apologize if you are any Brazilian, if we are using words and lingo out of context. Again, we're newbies. Give us a little bit of a pass, because we are the bodybuilding generation that was looking into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that we're really, I think is really growing. And so that's why wanted to bring Nicky on this and talk a little bit about it, talk about some of the different things that he's doing. But I hate to interrupt you, but I am throwing that out there. So for those of you, I keep talking about fights. I talk with Javier Mendez all the time, and they're obviously he coaches Khabib and Kane and a lot of the other prior champions, and it's always about fight. Are you guys normally calling them fights or just matches?
Yeah, we call them fights, matches.
Okay,
I don't know. We just playing around, really. I mean, it's hard to compare a jiu-jitsu fight into like an MMA fight.
Sure.
It's just completely different. But, you know, when you're in a match with me, you for sure, you know, you've been in a brawl, you know. So, but to break down the match, right?
Sure.
Gordon Ryan versus Andre Galvo, two of the greatest grapplers ever. Right now, Gordon is considered the GOAT of grappling just because his achievements, accolades. But previous, you know, Andre Galvo has won the ADCC World Championship many times. He's been considered the greatest grappler of his era.
Yeah, he was considered the GOAT.
Considered the GOAT. And Gordon subs him, takes him, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or something like that to submit Andre. Yeah, you just get outclassed. Like, it really is a battle of decision making and how fast you can make those correct decisions, right? So like, you got a guy that enters your legs and you're built with these options. Like, all right, he entered my legs. Do I try to kick out? Do I try to stand up? Do I try to roll? And then within these options, you have like these long drawn out sequences that happen afterwards. So it's kind of hard for me to imagine fighting because I'm like, I don't even know enough jiu-jitsu to get to, like, you know, be the best in the world yet, and then to learn like kickboxing, Muay Thai on top of that would be, you know, it's kind of hard to fathom.
Striking and all those things.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But yeah, the match, I mean, it went down how most people thought it was going to go down. Gordon ends up taking his back. He ends up subbing him with one arm. And it's just a battle. It's a real passing of the torch moment, right? Like, you see this guy that's, you know, he's a bit aged. He's in his 40s, I believe, against the young 27-year-old, which is Gordon. And, you know, Gordon not only is a more physically dominant grappler, he's just more knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. And in our sport, knowledge is power, and power comes second.
How much of that is Danaher?
Oh, I would say 100% it is John Danaher. That's the best advantage in our sport you could have, would be having John Danaher. Having a coach is great, but having the coach, the one person that studies every second of their sport, it's almost like sometimes like you don't want to listen to somebody talk, so you just tone it out. But like when John Danaher speaks, he can say a sentence to you that just changes your whole perspective of life, and you're like, it just elevates your grappling, just having that quick conversation, you know. So you never really want to miss moments, you know, with a person like that. But yeah, for sure, Gordon's best like attribute is having John in his corner, most definitely.
So wasn't he your coach as well?
Yeah. So I was training under John Danaher. I trained under him for the first 3 years of my career.
Okay.
And yeah, essentially the team as a whole, which is, we used to be called DDS, Danaher Death Squad. Sick name for sure.
Let's slow that down. So those of you that don't know, the Danaher Death Squad consisted of Gordon,
yes,
yourself, I believe Gordon's brother. Who else was in it?
Yeah, so Nicky Ryan, Nicky Rod, Gordon Ryan, Craig Jones, Gary Tonin, and we had a few juniors like Oliver Taza, Ethan Krelestein, and Eddie Cummins as well was an original DDS member. So essentially we made up the DDS, and we were just the most dominant team in grappling, right? We had the most medals, the most scary to go against it, because we break opponents in competition. You know, like if you get a arm barred or leg locked by one of our guys, you know, you're gonna have to need some medical attention afterwards, you know. So
because you'd go so fast into it, you would just, by the time that they would tap, they're already broken.
Yeah, exactly. In training, you know, we put
that's like some Cobra Kai shit.
That's exactly why we told our podcast security team to stay home today. It's like, we're good to go.
Yeah, we got Nicky.
Yeah, in training we apply submissions, you know, with a technical. Was
that something that he coached into it? Was that just mentally bred into it, where part of his technique was to be able to strike hard, strike fast, no mercy?
Well, I wouldn't say not really that, but like I would say he was so accurate with how he made us trained that there was no room for error. So we get to a submission, you're going to get broken, you know, like unless you tap before the submission was on, it's going to go. Cause like something like a leg lock, there's so many little intricate parts. Like you need to be close to the hip line before you get to the knee line, and to control the knee, you control the heel. And then once you start applying pressure towards the toes and the heel, the knee breaks and then the foot goes. So there's a chain of events that happens, and you could go tap here or I tap a half a second later and your fucking leg's done. So we would always train to be.
When you say your leg's done, are you normally telling like, is it a torn ACL? Is it a?
Yeah. So usually it goes, I think it goes like ACL first, but you have tears where you tear all
MCL,
three, everything.
Yeah, the whole three.
Because what happens is like we hold your knee still with our lower body, and our upper body turns your foot. So leg is straight, toes are facing the ceiling. We keep the leg straight and we make the heel face the ceiling. So you're completely rotating and just breaking
shit
everything.
That you're not supposed to do. Your body doesn't go in that thing. It's like grabbing a G.I. Joe when you're a kid and then the leg goes backwards.
Oh,
exactly.
man.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So we essentially in practice, we train that up until the 99th percent, right? Right before you get broken, we're like, all right, practice, we're done. But in competition, you lock it up and you don't let go until you hear screaming or the ref takes you off, you know?
Have you ever had to let somebody go before the ref took you off because the guy was screaming?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've broken my first tournament ever. I broke some guy in a Kimura, which is it's like a shoulder break. And multiple tournaments after that, I've done a few arm bars where, you break the joint, have joint issues. My first heel hook ever, right? I get an inside heel hook. Just for reference, right? I'm standing above the guy seated on the ground, butt on the floor. I backstep and I collect the heel hook, and within a second, his knee just explodes and he's laying on the mat screaming. They roll him off in like a chair, which is kind of sad, but it's risky because that's the same thing he wants to do to you. You know, like you really can't have mercy for the enemy, because if he's in that position, man, he's going to pull and he's not going to let go.
If he dies, he dies.
Yeah.
That's how it's got to be sometimes.
One topic I do really want to get into, because I got to see a bit of the back side of it whenever I was shooting some photos and a little bit of your fight you had a little while back at the beginning of the year here in Frisco, is just links into that also. It's just the mindset around all of this. Like, I got to see when you were focusing in and getting ready and just preparing for that fight. And it was like, I was just in there chilling, snapping photos, and it was really intense. And going into something like that, where you know that guy is going to try to do the same thing to you, what kind of mindset do you have to have going into that?
Well, I think it's important to first and foremost have extreme confidence, right? Because the time to be like, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? That's in practice, right? You figure out those doubts in practice. When you walk onto the mat, you have to have absurd belief in everything you do is going to work. And if he does something else, I'm just going to keep doing the correct movements until we can.
There's zero doubt.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes athletes worry too much about what their opponent's going to do, and they're worried about their reactions, as opposed to just focus on your own game plan. If I step on the mat, I say, all right, he stands up, I'm going to do this sequence. He pulls, I'm going to do this sequence. And don't really focus on what he could potentially do. Just be more engaged on the movements that you want to do. And, grappling's tough, but for sure, when I go into competition, my mind's clear. And I don't even really see like the crowd much. I just see a guy in front of me trying to hurt me. I can't let that happen.
You did seem very peaceful. I'll say that. That was kind of interesting, is when you were back, you were just kind of.
Yeah, people think I'm like raging before competition or during competition.
You go with it in a calm mindset?
Yeah, super calm, because in any scenario, panic is never good, right? If you have to try your hardest, so to speak, like you have to give your max effort, you're probably making the wrong decisions. Mm-hmm. You're probably falling back, so you have to play pickup. I think in pretty much at any time you're competing or doing anything in life, it's probably best to be clear, cognitively aware, be prepared, but don't be freaking out.
It's like bodybuilding. We always try to say the person who gets the good quality of sleep the night before ends up waking up the driest, because what ends up happening is the stress levels are low.
Cortisol's not
high. Stay chill, and your body will just end up starting to get full. You get a nice pump backstage, and you get up on stage. But if you're freaking out, if you've had very little sleep, you're stressing out because you're fighting with your girlfriend the night before, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to be washed out. You're going to be watery because of just the stress, stress hormones. Cortisol is going to play havoc on you. And I don't think it's any different, because you want that fight or flight response controlled so that you don't end up also having an adrenaline dump, right?
You gotta make split-second decisions.
Well,
yeah, I almost can't be like too happy. Like in a tournament, I can't be too happy after a win because then you'll have that huge spike. You're like, oh yeah, and then 20 minutes later, you got to go back to war. So it's just like you almost don't get to celebrate the win because it's always like, all right, what's next? You know,
because that's the other thing about this. It's almost like a wrestling tournament where you are bracketed and then you're going at each other. And normally, how many matches will you have?
Well, if you win 4, you got gold.
Okay, so you got to go through 4 different ones, and 4
of the best grapplers in the world. It's not like
how far apart are they spaced? You said like
well, in the World Championships, it's a bit. They do it better. We'll have like an hour in between, but in the absolute, which is in ADCC, we have an absolute division where there's no weight class. You can have a guy 300 pounds versus 120 pounds, right? So in the absolute division, if you're winning, you probably have a match like maybe a 15-minute break in between. Wow. So you go from spiking everything, being at 100. So you got to hit a cool down, got to get some sugar in you, got to get hydrated and get back to it.
Well, if you're going all out, I'm thinking an hour is not even like just feeling like thinking about if you're going all out at something.
Well, you think about it because these matches can last up to how many minutes?
Well, 15 minutes is including the overtime. So it's 10-minute match.
But there's no breaks.
It's 15 minutes of intense
cardio. It's no breaks. Like in MMA, it's so many minutes. Then you take a break. Yeah. You go through round 1, round 2, however many rounds, depending on the class, the division, blah, blah, blah. But this thing is just literally like
back to back.
We're going to fight for 15 minutes.
Yeah. Now, this is
and then there's an overtime, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So pretty much it'll be 10 minutes and then 5-minute overtime. The finals is 20-minute match. 2 10-minute overtime, so you could go 40 minutes straight in a battle
in one match at the very end. And then when you're doing, do you call that the unlimited?
The absolute.
Yep. On the absolute, how many matches do you go through? Because when you're going through your division
so day 1, day 2, right? Day 1 is only weight classes. Day 2 is only weight classes. Once that finish, absolute starts. So if you're winning day 1, you have 2 matches.
Yep.
Day 2, you have 2 matches to win your gold. And then after that, you have to start the absolute, which will be another 4 matches, 15-minute matches, and then 20 to 40-minute overtime. So this first day is good. It's tough, but second day is harder, bro. You got to be a dog to get in there.
Did Gordon do absolute? I didn't think he did.
No, Gordon wasn't able to do absolute because he did the super fight and they kind of like coincide together. But I think if he had the choice, like he probably would do it all. But he did his weight class and the super fight. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the one with Andre the Legend.
Yeah.
And Mr. No Traps. I mean, all traps. no neck. All traps.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all traps. So going back to the Danaher Death Squad, when you were a part of that was all in Jersey.
Yeah, well, actually, New York, Manhattan. Okay, I was living in Jersey and training in Manhattan.
So you're driving in?
Yes, driving in.
And when that was going on, didn't they eventually move to Puerto Rico?
Yeah, so pretty much when COVID hit, the whole DDS, our whole team, we moved to Puerto Rico for training because the cops were trying to stop us from practicing. Although we were a completely private, facility, just the team training, we had something go on where like John Danaher's walking to go open the door to the gym, as we have done millions of times, and the cops like intervened and they were like, "Yeah, you guys can't train today." Like it was. Even though it wasn't open to the public and it was only a closed session with just the team members. Yes, it was so absurd because that means taxpayer money went to putting a sting on a jiu-jitsu private practice. That's insane.
Did they say why when it was private, or they just said, we just don't want this happening?
Yeah, they were just like, you can't do it, COVID.
And then so what did John think about that?
He was like, yeah, this is crazy. We're leaving. It was either Texas or Puerto Rico. Because of I don't know, a couple things in the team, we end up going to Puerto Rico, which was cool for a bit. Like we were living on an island. It was pretty much like being away at college with all your friends, except you're stuck on an island.
That actually sounds pretty awesome. I don't think I'd stuck on an island.
Yeah. We should do a bodybuilding one like Swole Island.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Make a whole reality show out of it.
Yeah, we'll just have like 2 houses and we'll mix them between the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu team and because all the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys will kick all the bodybuilding guys' ass. Yeah. So we'd have to kind of like mix them up.
Yeah.
We'd have to have like, they'd have the roommates.
I'm just thinking about the cops stepping in like, yeah, we're not going to let the DDS practice. Pretty much. It's like, do you know who you're trying to reprimand at the moment?
I'm surprised the cops didn't just say, hey guys, do your thing. Just
would have thought they would have been.
They must have had somebody complaining like specifically about us, because there's no way they would just like stumble upon us. You know, we were training in a basement somewhere. Like it's crazy.
So when you went to Puerto Rico, what went down with the split? Tell me about that, because that's one of the things that I don't know about, even though I know little bits and pieces of everyone's history to a degree. And by the way, one thing I don't know if you even know, Austin, even though you're following this, Gordon is being sponsored by a rival podcast.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
it's a little known podcast.
It's a small podcast. Yeah. It's a small podcast. So Gordon is sponsored by Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
By the Rogan Experience.
Yep.
Right. Joe Rogan Experience. And I saw his patches on his rash guard. And one of the things is also, because most people follow Joe Rogan, I do. And I think not just because of his podcast, but because MMA, comedy, everything that I do enjoy, he does. And one of the things that I did notice is the fact that he was there, and he was at a couple of different other fights too. And he was there obviously supporting Gordon. And I think that one of the things is that he's also a big fan. And I think that's also helped put a big light because of his following, Joe Rogan's following of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, because Rogan was a part of ADCC kind of like years ago. Because when Eddie Bravo, which is one of Rogan's close friends, he was coming up, and Eddie Bravo kind of made his name through beating Royler Gracie in an ADCC match. Like he goes to ADCC World Championships, and I think his most notable win is beating Royler Gracie, which was at that time he was the GOAT, right? He was like undefeated, had the best jiu-jitsu at the time. Royler just seemed absolutely unstoppable. And you have this small Mexican kid from like California or something come in with his own little style under Mr. Machado and smashes the competition, right? He ends up beating Royler, making a name for himself, producing 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, which is like the mecca no-gi, of this generation. And so I believe that Joe Rogan kind of stuck along with Eddie throughout that journey. And it's crazy to see like what ADCC used to look like as opposed to what it is now, because we're selling out arenas in Las Vegas now. And before,
there's like 10 or 15,000 people there. So for those of you that are listening to this on the podcast and not on YouTube, what we'll do is we'll put some different shots of Tim will put some different shots of maybe the crowd if he can find them, but it was packed. It was like the Olympia, at its peak, like 10, 15,000 people in the crowd. And was it sold out? Yeah,
it was sold out. It was impressive, man. It was just like, because I come from a small town in Jersey, and to have, me and my brother at this event in front of 10, 15,000 people, it's definitely a dream come true. And we're excited for the next one because we think it's going to be even bigger. It seems every year that passes, the sport's growing and we're getting more fans. And I'm just happy to be along for the ride.
Well, it's amazing to see someone like Joe Rogan who's gotten behind it that helps so much put a spotlight on the sport, not just sponsoring athlete, but also to be able to just post up screenshots or putting up little videos of the different portions of the tournament because people are like, what's that? And then,
how much of the popularity now would you attribute to that? Because I mean, like there's very few people who have that kind of influence on the planet. There's a few.
Well, I think anything that Joe comes near is probably going to do well.
Elk meat, psilocybin.
They're all selling out now.
Really anything.
Yeah, but no, for sure. Like it makes us become closer to being mainstream, right? Yeah. Like not only did Joe Rogan pull up, but we had Nate Diaz, we had Snoop Dogg swing by. Like it was a wide variety of celebrities, and they were all just there to watch grappling. And where the sport's at a point where it's never been so popular and so predominant around the country, around the world, really. Because I can go to Australia, have fans there, teach seminars. I can do the same thing in the UK. I go to Hawaii this weekend. So like at the rate that it's growing, it's truly impressive to see.
What do you think of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus American Jiu-Jitsu? And not saying like this is all Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but the practitioners, the people that are competing, are you seeing that there's more like the Americans are getting better and better?
Yeah, so I feel like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus the Americanized version, right? American Jiu-Jitsu is mainly no-gi. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they do no-gi and the gi. But in the U.S., because of our wrestling heavy base, like a lot of high schools around the country have wrestling, it's a much easier transition going to no-gi grappling than it is gi grappling. So what's happening now is that we're having kids with wrestling skills finish up middle school, high school, and be like, all right, well, I could go to college, get in debt trying to wrestle, or I could just get this gym membership and try jujitsu, and maybe I have a career in a few years because I'm dedicating myself. So it seems like more and more younger kids are having kind of the mindset to say, all right, I'm going to go wrestle and I'm going to do jits and use that combination to create a career. So,
how much money do they make? Because I know at the Olympia, first place in the open class is like 400 grand, but it took almost 50, 70 years to get it to that point. Where are you guys at when it comes to
it's not near that much. Like to compete in a super fight for me, I'll get like 20,000, but like
that's still good. I mean,
yeah,
for a super fight.
Yeah. But like ADCC, it's like, I think it's like 10 or 15 to win your weight class, but the super fight will be like 50 G's. And the absolute will be like 50,000 as well. But you make the most money on your DVD set, on your instruction sales, your ability to coach and teach.
Because you're always packed, man.
Yeah.
I hear about you selling out really quick. When you go to another town, you'll have X number of hours and the ability to work with so many students. And then just people are just like, dude, I'm there.
Yeah, definitely we make the money on the back end on DVD sales, on like I have merch and stuff from B Team, and then teach seminars and all that stuff. And then just like every time you win or you beat a high level guy, you're worth more to these people. So definitely.
So what was the silver? If
silver, I think it's I don't know. I never checked. I was depressed. I'm sure they'll pay me soon though.
Like $5 grand, 10 grand?
Probably like 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If first place is 10, probably 5. But there's other tournaments like there's a gi tournament that they pay $100K for the winner.
Do you do any gi?
Oh, no.
No. Just because you've never done it, or just because you just never got into it?
I've tried it a few times. It's super uncomfortable for me. Like just having clothes on while I'm fighting somebody. I'm like, get off me, don't touch me. My grappling style is like, I want to go on top and I want to crush you. If I have somebody like pulling on me, it's not for me.
Right. Because it's a very different thing with gi, no gi.
It's definitely very different. And it's not as like viewer friendly. Like just by photos, you either watch the karate suits or you watch the 2 shirtless dudes with tattoos. You're probably going to watch the tattoos, So it's definitely more viewer friendly, and no-gi jiu-jitsu is super high pace. So like if you're a scrapper, you can turn it into a dog fight and get your win that way if you want.
Yeah. So it's much more exciting. More
physical, faster pace.
Because people in the gis are choking each other out with the gi on, like meaning you use the actual like gi, right? To choke them out.
You're like, you have to know some jujitsu to be able to watch and enjoy gi jujitsu. Typically you can just look at no gi jujitsu and you're like, yeah, I'm a fan of this. This guy's getting thrown. This guy's getting his arm broke. Like I understand what's going on.
I can see that guy. His knee just exploded.
Very gladiator-like, going all the way back.
That's right.
Yeah.
So going back, because we regressed a little bit, let's talk about that whole situation in Puerto Rico. What happened there where it became the B team versus what is the Danaher Death Squad now? What do they call?
I think they call themselves New Wave Jiu-Jitsu.
New Wave. Okay.
So DDS. We went to Puerto Rico, and we just had some like personality conflicts in the team, right? Like if everybody isn't getting along and we're not acting like a team, then it comes at a detriment to the training, right? So like we kind of B team jiu-jitsu is what I started with my team now, which is the most of the previous DDS members, and then John Danaher along with Gordon Ryan and Gary Tonin, they have their own thing at New Wave, which is just on the other side of town, which is we're close.
So was there an actual did a fight break out? Did something happen at that point?
No, nothing really happened. It was just like an accumulation of tensions are just rising between weight classes and like a few different things. It was just made it hard to stay focused in training. So we were like, all right, it's definitely best for us to just amicably separate and continue to grow and grow in separate ways. So
weren't you training with Gordon down there?
Yeah, I trained with Gordon for like 3 years straight. Pretty much all the time I was under John Danaher. I trained with Gordon and John, and they helped me out a ton, man. Especially John, taught me anytime it's hard for me to shut down the ego sometimes because I want to win so bad, even if it's in practice. But eventually when I matured and I'm like, all right, I have to shut this ego off to ask the correct questions in practice, keep growing. It's like, once I was able to figure out the questions to ask, man, my trajectory just kept taking off. And
that's with any athlete, whether it's bodybuilding or not, your ego is not your amigo.
You don't want to be ego lifting.
Dude, it was so hard for me because like if somebody taps you in practice, it feels like the world's over. It's like, what am I doing here? Like I have to kill him, right? And it has to be less about that and more about like, well, why did this happen? how can we prevent this? How can we get better at this position so where we gain an advantage from him getting here? So definitely what you said, your ego is your enemy sometimes.
It is. And I think that the other thing that runs into things is that when you're trying to be kind of pack leader, it could be a little bit, and you have somebody else that's the pack leader, or whether you want to be that person. I think sometimes, especially when your ego's there, you don't always understand number 2 can be in a really good spot because maybe you're just not going to be number 1 yet. But you have to make sure that your ego's in check and you can learn, because that other person might be genetically more gifted than you, or they have the ability to be able to be farther, more advanced because they've been able to learn the technique. They've been in the technique longer. They've been able to absorb more just information at a higher level. But when your ego is kind of is suppressing you from moving forward and growing because you just can't stand it. I've seen that with even in bodybuilding, where you are working with multiple athletes, and then if they don't get along, then now all of a sudden one wants to bounce because they can't stand one of the other athletes, even though you try to work with everybody equally. And then if they have to go up against each other, they do, you let the judges deal with the rest. But when you turn around and you have somebody who just can't handle that, they want the attention. They want to be like the only child syndrome or whatever it might be. And I'm not saying that you went through this, but I'm just saying that you probably are matured more because of that experience, right?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely had to learn. I think the hardest part of training, like without John Danaher, is that we kind of had to find, like B team as a whole had to find like our schedule, our purpose, like not purpose, but like, how do we keep progressing? Because before we had a question, we just asked this one guy, fucking knows everything.
So do you have a coach right now?
Well, my peers are my coach, right?
Right.
Same thing when I trained under John. I also asked my peers, many, many questions. So my peers are consisted of Craig Jones, Ethan Crelicine, Nicky Ryan, Damian Anderson, Nick Ortiz, Isaac Mitchell, which is...
Can I give you a little suggestion?
Yeah, please.
Find the shittiest one.
Find the shittiest one.
Oh, yeah, you know why? The person who's the shittiest on the team physically is probably going to be the smartest in terms of being able to pick things apart.
Yeah, I can relate that because Nick Ortiz is probably the least successful grappler of the best guys in our gym, but super knowledgeable. Like if I have a question about anything, like he usually has the answer or he can help me figure it out. So like he might not be the best competitor now. He's still young, has time to grow. Right. But as a coach, like I could see him going far as just being an instructor. Right.
Because when you're at that point, i.e. me,
I feel like I can see where you're going.
Though I'm going with this. I was a natural bodybuilder that I just knew that I was never going to be a great professional bodybuilder. Yeah. But I was just always a better coach.
Because you have to be selfish when you're a bodybuilder, right? It's all about you.
Right. Right. Did John compete at the highest level?
I believe John got injured years before his...
so did Hany.
Yeah, I think John had some like knee and hip issues earlier.
How old is John?
John, I think he's early 60s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I hope I'm not wrong because he could be like early 50s.
He's like my 40s. He's like he's probably my age. He's like 40. He's like his 40s, and it's like he's probably going to listen to this. And
just
he's like,
seen a lot.
I see that fucker. I'm going to turn around. Yeah. So if you saw him right now, are you like? Did you see him at the tournament?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're cool. John's you can never take anything away from the guy. Like as much as he's done for the sport, I mean, him alone, he's produced, just some of the best athletes this generation of jiu-jitsu has ever seen. So he'll be the best coach probably forever, because he's just absolutely addicted to learning and addicted to, spreading his knowledge.
That's awesome because he's truly passionate.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that, so if you had to go back and you go back in time and there was a way to be able to kind of reconstruct that relationship, and if you didn't tear that apart, or I'm not saying you did it, but I'm just saying that situation where the split would have happened, would you go back and try to fix that?
I would say for sure the preference would be to continue to train under John Danaher. I mean, I feel like all the greatest in all the sports had one guy that they were like, this is my coach. I completely buy into his process and I'm gonna commit to him and to his ways. So like definitely if I had ability to have that coaching again, I mean, I'd take advantage of it.
Isn't he across town?
Yeah, he's across town. We got different schedules, different training partners. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely more that goes into it. Like in a jiu-jitsu room, you have to be able to trust your training partner that, you know, if he gets to a submission on you, he's not going to break your leg. You know, so we need that trust in a gym, and you know that's pretty important.
Do you think that wouldn't happen if you guys were back in it again?
I mean, I don't. Anything can happen. You know what I mean? If somebody is feeling a certain type of way one day, you know, for sure it's been done in practice before. You know, guys have gotten broken on accident and on purpose. You know, so shit happens, man.
Interesting that you talk about that mutual trust.
Yeah, because I mean,
the person you're grappling with,
especially even if you're drilling, you know, this guy's getting to really deep submissions on you. And it's like, all right, I'm trusting you to not break me. You know, it's same thing in live training. You know, you're applying a heavy submission, but you're applying it with you're just, you know, aware of your ability, so you're not, you know, gonna break your opponent or break your partner at that. So yeah, you definitely need that mutual like respect in training. Yeah,
and those, just for those that weren't following this story, when you guys all left almost at the same time, right? When Puerto Rico, you guys, the team broke up.
Yeah.
Didn't you around the same time? Didn't you guys all leave?
Yeah, we all left and we all went to Austin. We just don't train together anymore. we
just ended up there naturally. Why? Is there a reason?
Well, yeah, it's because Flow Grappling's based in Austin. So most of our like super fights is what they call them. Got it. Will be based in Austin. So it's just easier. Because in Puerto Rico, you have to fly everywhere. You know, it's just a headache. And then of course we have the phenomenal barbecue that Texas has to offer. And,
I like how that's number two. I like that that's the second thing. That's very cool.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the main part. In addition, obviously Joe Rogan's in town, and we see collectively that the town of Austin is on the rise, right? Like whatever the real estate is now, it's probably the lowest it's going to be for the next 10 years or so. So like we see everything rising, and we think it's like if you look at the best businesses in New York and LA, typically they started like 25 years ago. And it seems like everything goes in this rise and fall where it's like 20 years up, 20 years down. So we're trying to catch Austin. We think we're catching on the rise. And we get our roots dug in, and then, 5, 10, 20 years from now, we're exactly where we need to be.
Now, is that for students or real estate or both, or what do you
just everything in general? Like, I'm part owner in B team, so we're going to be open to the public in a month or so, which that entails like we'll have white belts and stuff. Because previously we're just super private and exclusive gym, strictly for athletes that are trying to become, professional athletes and professional grapplers. So in a month or so, we'll open to the public, and we'll have white belts and whatnot. I'll be looking to buy a house in Austin soon as well. We're looking to buy a fighter house on top of that. So we got some shit going on, but it's coming. It's hard not to like do everything at once. I just have to be I have to figure out sometimes what exactly I need to focus on.
The priorities.
Yeah, prioritize everything. Yeah, exactly. Because
I think that you mentioning the gym and opening it up to the public is very interesting, because I just personally would even have some questions of like, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that would have interest in looking into this or potentially getting started in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What are because like if I think about, when people ask about bodybuilding, where I start training, I say like there's some awesome bodybuilding gyms where you go and you're not going to get the same advice you would get from a commercial gym. But like, what would your recommendations be to somebody who is just kind of interested in getting started, but they maybe are intimidated? Because it's an intimidating atmosphere.
Well, I would say if you're just a normal guy, a normie, and you're trying to go do some training, you can use jiu-jitsu to definitely get in shape and just build your confidence, right? Like, I'm not going to lie, like you take just about any human, give them 6 months of proper instruction, and you could beat up most of the population, like without breaking a sweat. So I think something like that could definitely help guide guys or people just to have higher confidence levels. And if you're looking to train, just stop by your local gym, go hop in a white belt class, and just see how it goes. I think people maybe think it's worse than what it really is. Because
I got a student for you.
Yeah. Okay. Who is he?
You got a wrestling background.
All right,
Derek.
Yes,
Derek
open Lunsford now.
Yeah, Derek. Yeah, he's only around 255.
It's a big boy
at 5'6".
That's a big boy. I want to say the biggest grappler I've had was like 360 pounds. He's like, he's like 5'9.5" wide, super wide.
I wasn't expecting you to say 5.
Was he in really good shape, or was he just kind of a big guy?
No, just big guy. I think he used to be a bodybuilder, but No, he's just a builder. And
Got it.
Power lifter.
Yeah, that's
Power lifter. We'll say power lifter.
But so, yeah, I would be funny. I think we should put Derek in there.
That would be a very, because I know he knows how to fight.
He does.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he knows how to wrestle. I don't know about fighting.
Yeah.
But he knows how to wrestle. But it would be kind of cool. You've seen Derek.
We could do it today. Yeah.
Well, Derek's he's in Tampa. So when he gets ready for after the Olympia and he's on his off season, maybe we'll talk him into going there and just don't blow his knee out.
No.
Don't,
That'd be risky.
Yeah. No, Nicky will take good care of him. Nicky will take good care of him. They're teammates. And I think that it would be really cool. But one of the other things that we did was we ended up asking a bunch of people questions and about you and saying, hey, for those that know you, what are some questions that we could use? And I got a list here in front of me. So let's see here. Number 1, if you had to walk down a dark alley in a bad part of town and you had to pick 2 people to walk with you, who would they be?
Oh, 2 people to walk with me.
Who are the 2 most badass people that you would trust, that you know?
All right. Probably Mr. Curtis Blades, UFC fighter, right? Razor Blades. He's huge guy. Head like a pumpkin. Okay. Big old country, big old country boy. Overshadows me. And then I'd probably pick somebody like fairly elusive, like Ethan Krelliston, right? He's like 160, 70 pounds. But intelligent, can talk his way out of a dark alley if he needed to. You know what I mean? So I think a wide variety.
There you go. So he's using different techniques. He's strategizing. You can tell this is maturity. Yep. He's like, one, I got the negotiator, and then I got pumpkin head.
Yeah. You don't just get all big boys because then they get tired if they have to run. So
that's true.
Actually, that just gave me a question really quick, if I can interject.
Sure.
On that note, so for instance, somebody like Jocko has talked about how when a fight is about to break out, something in a bar or something along those lines, the first opportunity he has is just leaving. And that he talks about how, because obviously, you see bar fights break out and things. Usually the guys who start them have no clue what they're doing. And they're usually complete idiots. In that setting.
Why you keep looking at me?
No, I wasn't looking at you. No, just looking around.
I thought you were trying to allude to the Santa Barbara match.
But like in that setting, you've obviously got ultimate confidence that you know where that's 100% going. Would you just essentially, okay, like let's end this now before anything starts?
In a bar fight, striking, right? Striking's quite different than grappling, just because anybody can throw a punch and wherever your hand is aimed, it's gonna land and have some kind of reaction, right? Yep. So like you could take a toddler and throw a punch and have an issue. Yeah. But I would say I'm more of a walk away from a fight kind of guy, because if I get in a fight, they're probably not going home that day.
That's the stuff I've heard is usually the people who
have
are
you ever gotten in a bar
confident.
Fight? I used to do some bouncing, so I did quite a bit of breaking up bar fights. I guess I was in a few bar fights. Actually, the second weekend
in Jersey or where?
In Jersey. So I did some. I was bouncing at a local bar next to Rowan University in South Jersey, right? So my second weekend ever bouncing, it's closing time. There's a group of like 20 frat kids. We're like, all right, guys, like please head out. You know what I mean? Trying to kick them out. And they start getting rowdy, and I'm like focused on this like group of guys, and their friend like sneaks behind me, gets on my back and starts choking me, right? Wraps his hand around my neck and starts choking me. So immediately I turn it inside towards him. So I'm like belly to belly with him, grab a body lock, up, put him on the ground, and then elbow to the face, and immediately starts going into a seizure. Dude, very scary. Eyes roll back. He's foaming, seizes for, 10, 20 seconds. Help him out, help him out the door. But it was like, don't want to fight because shit like that happens. That could have been much worse. So I definitely try to avoid situations like that, because it's very hard to be in the moment like, oh, I don't hit him that hard. And it's like, you're right, your life's on the line. You got to hit him,
Right. Well, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys that were in Santa Barbara, when I was going to UCSB, they were bouncers. And so I'd see them at Gold's Gym. We would train. And then at night, my buddy was one of the head bouncers over at O'Malley's. And the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys there, because there was a foreign language school that a lot of Brazilians would come in and basically work on their language skills. And then during the day, they would train in bodybuilding. They loved bodybuilding, but they also did a ton of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then at night, they were bouncers. And I remember that one of the guys was telling me a story the night before. I said, hey, what's going on? And they're like last night things got a little crazy because, Rodrigo or whoever ended up choking somebody out that kept talking shit. But what they do, and they explained it to me, they're like, what they do is they would go up, get them, choke them out, and then they would kind of drag them to the front. And then if they tried to still fight, they would take their pants off.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, why do you do that? Like, humiliate them? He says, well, kind of, because then they would stop fighting because they were so drunk that what would happen was these guys would get dragged to the front of the entry. And then if they try to get back up and they were trying to fight, and then they're just getting tired of having to keep choking the guy out, because the cops would just sit there and kind of laugh, right? They would, the Santa Barbara PD was just, because they were just used to a bunch of crazy college kids.
Yeah.
And so when these guys thought that they could fight, but they couldn't, and they would get submitted, basically they're just getting choked out.
Yeah.
They said that when they would take their belt off and take their pants off, then they felt so humiliated, they would just stop fighting, because nobody wants to fight with just, your underwear on.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would just feel humiliated and they would stop. But that was the only time, because some people would just keep coming back at them, and they didn't want to destroy them and hurt them and put them in the hospital. So then they would just kind of humiliate them, take their pants off in the middle of the street.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way they did it.
It's good crowd control right there.
Yeah.
That's exactly how all the
Because
Brazilian
usually the guys
do
who
it.
are starting the fight are trying to look all macho and stuff. You do the
Well, and
one,
they're
you do the
drunk.
one thing that's going to turn them into flailing around with their pants off.
Well, that's the problem with tequila, right? If you're drinking tequila, or if you're hopped up on vodka, whatever else that they're taking,
Liquid courage.
it's liquid courage.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, if there happens to be an MMA fight that night, or there's some kind of major boxing match, now everyone wants to go out there and box.
Yeah, I think people in general believe that they can fight better than they actually can. Like,
100%.
people have
100%.
confidence. Yeah,
I would watch Mike Tyson fights with my buddies, and everybody thought they were Mike Tyson after their fight.
I was just recently on a trip, and I was over off in a separate table talking to somebody, and somebody runs up and pretty much is like your best friend. Something happened, like in a fight. I run over to the bathroom. I found out that a guy didn't like him for some reason, jumped on his back and tried to start choking him while he was peeing, while he was at the urinal, and just started
Pissing everywhere.
And so my buddy's just like it was just a mess. But I'm like, people just get so, they just, for some reason, that setting, they instantaneously think that they can.
I think the place to fight is the bar, though, because if you do it somewhere else, like I feel like in a bar, you get in a fight, security comes, separates you, and then you have to wait for the cops to come. Unless the cops are kind of out front already, you can kind of just fight and get away. Like I would see some people, because I bounced for a little bit, I'd see some guys like start fights, like almost they wait until the bar to fight, and then they just peace out before anything happened. They get it in real quick and then go home.
Yeah. No, I thought you were looking at me earlier because of
I didn't know that story.
You don't know about Santa Barbara? No. Do you know about the other story?
Yeah, the tequila one. The one that what? Which one?
The one in Santa Barbara when we were in there with Matt
You
Allen.
ever have to throw hands?
No, what happened was it was somebody else actually. So I was there with my buddy and two friends, and one of them was like 6'3", probably 240, 250. And he is a guy that him and I were workout partners in college. And so what happened was he was the one that was the head bouncer at O'Malley's in Santa Barbara. And he calls and says, hey, we're going to go over to Calypso, which is across the street. And there's a bunch of, girls are going to be down there. Why don't you come meet us? And we're going to have a good time. And then Matt Allen, who's married to Wendy Fortino, and she's a pro, and he coaches a lot of people now in bodybuilding. And he's about my height, maybe a little bit taller. And he was about 210 pounds, 220 pounds. And the other one's 6'3", 250. And so when we went across the street, they had both been drinking a little bit. But Matt, I guess the other one is bumps elbows at 6'3". But Matt was the one that jumps in the face of the guy that they bumped elbows with. So if you're looking at the whole thing, Matt kind of instigated it a bit because he got into a face of this guy. And this guy was like 180 pounds and he had his drink, cool as a cucumber. And he turns around and he's like, do we got a problem? And so he looks at Matt and Matt says, yeah, man, I got a problem with you. And they're in each other's face. And I look around and none of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys are getting involved. And I'm like, what's going on?
They know something you don't.
They knew something I didn't know nobody knew.
Yeah.
And then the head bouncer comes and grabs me and he goes, Hany. I go, yeah. He goes, your friend, no fight. I go, what do you mean? He goes, no, he's a fighter. I I go, what do you mean he's a fighter? He goes, he get money to fight. We know him. Don't. No, your friend no fight. Your friend no fight. I mean, this is my bad Brazilian accent. But he's like, your friend no fight. So I go, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, really bad. And so I can see like he's very, very serious. And I look at all the other guys and they're just standing like completely far away. And normally, like you said, when they see people kind of about to get into it, they break them up, or they let them kind of get into it a little bit and then they pull them apart.
They're waiting for the show.
Oh, they're waiting because this was going to be a show. So I see these people that are at this point, I'm very seriously concerned about Matt. So I go over and I try to stop him, and he's getting more and more into this guy's face. And this guy's just super chill. He grabs his drink. He goes in, he puts it on the side of the bar. And he comes back and he's about to just like, I thought he was going to start warming up or something, right? Because I'm like, this guy's a paid fighter. And then he turns around and I go, Matt, stop. And he wouldn't listen to me. He's been drinking. I grab him. I literally put him up on my shoulder. I took him out like a sack of potatoes. He called it a sack of potatoes when he tells the story. I took him out the back, put him into the parking lot. And he's like, why the fuck did you do that? Why the hell did you stop me? I said, bro, do you know who that guy is? And I go, he's a paid fighter. All the jiu-jitsu guys from the gym said, don't fight, no fight. Yep. That means no fight. He goes, really? I go, yeah, dude, I don't know who he is, but I'm just telling you. And this is back in 1998, 1999.
Yeah.
So I walk back in and the guy comes over and he stops me. He goes, are we cool? I go, yeah, man, sorry. My friend's been drinking a lot. And he's like, oh, you're a good friend. I go, yeah. He goes, what's your name? I go, Hany Rambod. And he goes, nice to meet you. I go, what's your name? He goes, Chuck Liddell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he had the mohawk then, but he's not a big guy. He wasn't he was maybe 185 pounds, but again, I hadn't watched UFC. I mean, I don't even think it was a thing yet. This is 1998, 1999.
Dude, if a guy has a mohawk, I'm not fighting him.
Yeah. He had a very little mohawk. It was a small guy. And he was just like, but he was just super chill. He's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And he was born in Santa Barbara. He lived in San Luis Obispo, and he would come down to State Street, which is the main drag where all the bars are. Yeah. And he'd go out and have a good time. So I think one of the girls he was dating was down there or something. And then we ended up running into each other a couple more times after that. It was cool. But it was one of those things that after that, Matt called me and he's like, dude, I went and looked up that guy. Yeah. It would have been Mortal Kombat. I would have been dead.
The scary one's the calm one.
Yeah.
The scary
that's what I'm saying. He was super calm.
Dude,
and that was it. He said, Chuck Liddell.
A street fight could change somebody's life pretty fast. That's a good call.
Yeah.
No fight.
No fight.
That's it.
The title of the podcast. Yeah, no fight.
Yeah. That is it. Oh man. But I'm sure that's happened a lot of times with guys like him because he'd go out drinking a lot,
and he looks fairly normal. Like he's not like jacked.
No, he's not.
He just kind of chills.
Yeah. Especially with clothes and, without a shirt on So going into the next question, if you could do any sport that wasn't Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what would it be?
Oh, probably motocross.
Interesting.
I like,
didn't expect that one.
Yeah. I like two wheels. I've been riding dirt bikes since I was like 3 years old. My dad got me like little PW 60, But yeah, I've always been a fan of the two wheels. I feel like you get pretty close to freedom on machines, right? Like you could grab a jet ski, you jump some waves, feels like you're flying. You could grab a dirt bike, and if you know how to ride, you can hop in any woods, any trails, and take off. So I think probably some enduro, probably some supercross. Yeah. Okay.
Enduro, supercross. I mean, that's some crazy shit, man.
Yeah. I kind of taught myself how to jump maybe in like 2015. So I could jump a little bit, but I definitely have I found respect for like professional dirt bike riders, more supercross guys, because it takes quite a bit of endurance and whatnot that comes to it.
We got a little alarm. Is that yours?
Yeah, that is mine.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
We all checked ahead of time. Everybody's like, phone's on silent.
What's going on? No, it was an alarm. It was to make sure that we're going to go to the gym and train.
Yeah. So we got that going on.
Yeah, we do. That's cool. So motocross and let's see here. Got you. Let's see here. Next question. Let's see here.
I played quite a bit of paintball too.
Paintball.
I was
not expecting either.
Dude,
of
he's
these.
like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu paintball on a dirt bike.
Do you use the paintball gun, or you just go straight at the person right away?
doing both's a bit too much multitask for me.
Yeah.
But no, in middle school, I remember I had like a summer job where I worked the lottery at like a check cashing store, and they paid me like $60 a day, right? I only work 1 day a week, and it cost me $60 every weekend to play paintball. So I would just like spend every cent,
reinvest it straight back, straight back into paintball.
Yep.
So you said you're still playing or no?
Oh, I play occasionally.
You're on my team when we do
company paintball.
We're doing the Evogen Extreme Olympics.
I don't want Derek.
All right, let's do it.
You get Derek.
No, he's wide as a billboard.
That's
Derek's
right.
going to be right. Shooting at Derek's like shooting at 3 people.
Nicky's on my team, bro. You know,
I will take all of the smallest athletes that we possibly have.
You can take Andrew. Yeah. I don't know about Andre. I don't know how athletic Andre is.
This is the one time that I'm happy to be one of the smaller people in the company is when we do company paintball.
That's hilarious. We're going to definitely do it here in Dallas. It's starting to cool off this week, so we're going to have to start planning that up. All right. So we got somebody put in a question. At your level, everyone basically has technique. What is the most important differentiator now? Size, strength, explosiveness, or pure endurance?
I think endurance is the most important. Like I'm at a point now where I'm not really trying to get stronger or bigger. I'd rather be stronger longer at the weight that I'm at. Right, because it's not in our matches. It doesn't matter anybody can do well at the first 5 minutes when you're fresh. It's like how are you feeling? How are you performing at 10 minutes? Are you thinking cognitively clear at 15-minute mark of your match? So I would say the endurance and the ability to think cognitively clear when you're deep into the match.
Awesome. All right. Next question was you're a brown belt now, correct?
Yep.
Okay. When did you get promoted? Was it this year or last year?
I got promoted to brown belt maybe about 6 months ago. 6 months into opening B team, I had Nicky Ryan gave me a brown belt kind of unexpectedly, and that was good, man. It definitely gave me some pride, especially being on one of his first brown belts or his first brown belt. But yeah, still have a ton of knowledge I need to gain before I'm at my peak.
Awesome. And do you feel like the reason why you're able to compete against, do you look at somebody saying, hey, like they're a black belt, I'm a brown belt? Do you ever feel like,
no, I don't really pay attention to their belts or anything, but like, I don't even really watch film of my opponents first. I just have like more of an outline. If he sits down, I have this set of sequences, a set of series of moves that I do, and if he stands, I do this. So I really don't pay much attention to my opponents. I will watch I'll watch Gordon grapple. It's probably the only person I watch grapple just because he's the best, and why watch somebody else, But yeah, besides that, I just have certain game plans, and I know what I'm best at, and I do my best to implement those strategies in competition.
Well, it sounds like you really kind of focus on making sure that you focus on you instead of having to worry too much about the other people.
Yeah, you have to be a bit selfish if you want to be, competing at the highest level. And I definitely do what it takes.
Number 6, in the semis, you beat Felipe Pena and made it look pretty easy. How much confidence did you get going into the finals against Gordon because of what happened with the Felipe that round? Well,
I'm confident in every match. Like, I believe I'm going to win every time I step on the mat. It's more just like, yeah, I don't even think like I'm so absurdly confident. Like it'd be hard to describe like when I'm competing. Cause like
but do you think you're too confident?
No. I just think like I have confidence in what I do. I say, if I get to this position, I can pass everybody in the world. If I start this sequence, I can complete this sequence to anybody in the world. So like I'm hyper confident in my areas, and then like I train all year long so I can be hyper confident in all areas. My match going into the match with Felipe Pena, I knew my passing. I know I had the ability to pass him, and the ability to get him tired from bottom position, because a lot of it's like jiu-jitsu usually works later on in the match. Like unless there's a huge skill discrepancy, there's very rarely going to be a sub early on. The subs usually come 10 minutes deep into a match. But yeah, for Felipe, I was super confident about my passing ability. And then going into the match with Gordon, I just thought I was gonna win the match, with my strategy. The strategy was to stay on top and avoid the leg entanglements, pass guard. I figured the later I dragged out, the better it would go. But he was able to entangle legs and collect the heel. But, you just got to learn. He's the best leg locker in the world. And I'm trying to be up there as well,
Awesome. Next question was, in the finals, you came out with without a rash guard.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reasoning behind that? Because the rash guards, basically, for those that you don't know, are basically designed for
grappling. It's designed to, one, slide on the mat, and two, stick to your opponent. So like the reason behind wearing a rash guard for me versus not wearing a rash guard. If I feel like I have the ability to submit my opponent, typically I'll wear a rash guard because I'll say, okay, my technique's better, so I can use this friction to help guide me towards submission. In the other side of that, if I feel like somebody's a little bit better, or you need to be more elusive, I'll take the rash guard off because I'll be like, all right, if this guy grabs a hold of me, I need to have as much advantage as I can as slipping away.
And let me grab one really quick because I have one right here where the even was, just to show it, because I know when I was first hearing about it, I was like, what's a rash guard? Yeah, so let me grab one.
Yeah.
So what was the reason why you didn't wear it?
Yeah, because I mean, Gordon has more technique than me, so I was like, yeah. So it's just this rash guard's just this stretchy, like polyester, silky shirt.
You want to lift it up so right in their screen you can see it.
Silky polyester shirt we wear, nice and stretchy. You know, it's got some
beautiful Evelyn logo. Right.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So I decided in the finals not to wear one because I was like, all right, game plans to slip out of all his grips and whatnot, and then eventually use chest connection to implement my body lock passing system. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. But if I could go back, I still wouldn't wear a rash guard against Gordon, and I still would keep mine on against the other guys because I just feel like he's the only guy in jiu-jitsu really that has more technique than me, especially at my weight class. I feel like I'm the most technical and most advanced grappler.
What's his height and weight? He's about 220.
Yeah, he's 6'2", 220, 215, and I'm like 6'3", 230, 225. Yeah.
Okay. On that note, I thought that the reason when you're coming out, you're like, okay, dude, I'm just as big as you. You're just taking that shit out.
Well, he's a little bit lighter, but he looks bigger. I mean, he's pumped.
Well, it's because you're also taller.
Yeah,
you're a little taller.
I'm taller. I'm wider. He has different attributes. Like he has like a crazy core, but no back. I have wide back, bigger legs, bigger arms.
Who wins, you or Gordon, in a physique competition?
Oh, physique. Oh, it depends. Depends what you rate more, right? Do you rate, because we're fairly even, some things like I definitely have bigger arms by his shoulders, but his biggest thing is his chest and his core, right? Like if I can do 100 sit-ups in a row, he can do 500. Like core is ridiculous because for 10 years he's been bringing his knees to his chest. So it's just core every day for 10 years.
Right.
I'd say I'd probably win in physique competition because I'm wider. He's more like 2-dimensional, like I'm
not
more
3D.
He's not 3D.
There you go.
I have more girth. I have more width. And
it's all about the girth.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hey,
because it's good to be shredded, but if you don't have any width, you just have a small back.
There you go. That's it. Gordon, he's calling you out. If you're listening to this, he's calling you out.
He can also probably put on 10 pounds of back pretty fast. You know? So I can't do that.
Well, like I said, I mean, Joe Rogan's a big bodybuilding fan too. I mean, obviously he's had Dorian Yates on, he's had Ronnie Coleman on, he's had some of the legends on. And I think that it's one of those things that's cool to see guys that are in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that are also starting to get a little bit jacked, so that it makes it look like, wow, these guys actually look good. Because a lot of the MMA guys, they don't always look good. Yeah,
I think me and Gordon kind of were one of the first two to really implement bodybuilding or just having a good physique.
Does he train like a bodybuilder?
I think his lady was a professional bodybuilder, so he kind of follows her protocol.
Okay.
Yeah, so he definitely trains quite a bit of bodybuilding, and I have trained bodybuilding for like the past 8-9 years.
Oh yeah, I have actually seen this girl. Yeah, you're right. You're right. She's Brazilian, right?
Yep, for sure. I've been training bodybuilding for like 8-9 years, and within the past year, I've done switched it up because I have less of the goal of getting bigger,
right?
More just like seeing where my fitness can go.
All right, let's see here. I think we got the question answered about, there's some people that were asking regarding the B team and how that happened with New Wave. I think you were able to already bring that up. We talked about Austin, so we got that. Somebody asked who your coach is, and you kind of broke that down already.
Yeah, mainly my team.
Your team. Is it strange that Gordon's brother came to train with your team instead of his own brothers?
I mean, probably strange to most, but we kind of like, you know, understand why. It was just healthier for us all to stick together in our own, you know, B team era. And yeah, it just kind of happened that way.
Does he get along with his brother?
I'm sure they're amicable. You know, I don't really get in their business too much.
Personal relationship.
Yeah.
Who do you think has the most potential out there out of everyone you've seen or trained with?
The most potential. I mean, I like to say myself, you know.
Good answer. Good
Outside of you, like, do you see somebody that say, "Hey, man, this guy's turning around to be pretty good"?
Yeah, we got this little guy, Joseph Chen, right? He's like 170 pounds, like 17 years old. But man, he's really good. He studies a ton of jits, super knowledgeable. And I could see him, you know, if he puts in the correct amount of work for the next, you know, 2 to 5 years, he could probably make it onto the team and make a career out of the sport.
Okay. What did you say? What class was he in?
He must be in the 77 weight division, 77 kilograms. So fairly light. Smaller guy, yeah.
All right. What's the plan for the next 2 years?
Okay, next 2 years, jiu-jitsu wise, I have a few different things. I've been working on this certain type of passing where I'm forcing an opponent to entangle legs and then take their back, or, you know, win a leg entanglement from these positions. In addition to that, I have a plan to wrestle with some wrestlers. I'm going to go to Penn State and spend some time over there just learning and whatnot. And then as a whole, for ADCC, we'd really like to get multiple gold medals. Like if we could get, like, the goal is to win at 5 weight classes, all the weight classes in gold, obviously. But if we could get like 2 to 3 gold medals, I think that's definitely doable for my team. Because 2 years is going to go by fast, but man, there's a lot of opportunity to grow.
Do you have any super fights planned right now?
No super fights planned, but we're talking in early November. I might have a match, and that's it. I just have a ton of.
Can you say with who?
No, they haven't. They just asked me for a match, and I don't really ask for like an opponent. They just give me whoever. Yeah, but yeah. Some people like to pick their opponents. I feel like you have to beat everybody to be the best.
Yeah, if you want to be the best, you got to just go up against everybody.
I just, like, as long as that check clears, you know, I'll be there.
Diaz was like that, right? I mean,
yeah.
Diaz, the MMA fighter.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, he's like, I don't even care.
Both of them, Nick and Nate, just not caring at all. Throw down.
No, they got the Stockton.
Yeah,
they got that Stockton attitude. All right. One of the last questions: if you could change any rule about the competitive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what would it be?
Okay, I would say make there be one rule set and one time for a match, because it's so hard to prepare for an event where you have 15-minute matches, and in the same event you have a 40-minute final. And on top of that, throughout the year, you're competing in different rule sets. This guy is a point-based system. This company is sub-only based system. This guy scores points differently. So it's very hard. Like, whenever you're in camp for a competition, you really have to dictate your training towards that specific competition, because you can't treat an EBI camp the way you treat an ADCC camp. EBI is Eddie Bravo Invitational, and their big thing is, for overtime, you sit on your butt, they put an opponent on your back, and you have to start from the worst position possible, an opponent on your back trying to choke you. So that's their, like, the EBI overtime rules. And yeah, so it's
who's the one that gets to be at the top?
So I think that it's a judge's decision, or they flip a coin or something, red or blue. If you win, you take back first, and you either have to so you have to defend and then choke. So you fully defend and escape, and then you have to choke them faster than they choked you, or escape faster.
So there's different associations have just different rule sets.
Every association has a different rule. So that makes our sport super, super hard to, like, be prepared for. Because at least, like, in wrestling, like, you know the rules, the match times are always the same. It just makes it so much more difficult to either prepare for a sprint at the same time you prepare for a marathon.
Now, playing like the devil's advocate on that side, though, does that make it more interesting?
I mean, it could, because it gives the viewers a different ability to, like, find out what's the most entertaining thing. I think that's what these different associations are trying to find. Like, what's the most viewer friendly rule set?
Because it's like strongman. You show up to a strongman event, it's like they'll throw random things in there.
CrossFit's like that too, right? A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
They throw that in. And I think the last thing that I wanted to touch on is when it comes to recovery and whatnot. I know that I sent you some products. What are your favorites? Do you use any carbohydrate powders. I know that you and I wanted to like get a chance this season work together a little bit closer. We're going to hit the gym right after this podcast.
What are you training?
I don't know. It was up to you. What did you want to train? Because out of all the body parts, if you wanted to work on one, what would it be?
I mean, back or buys, back end buys, something like that, you know?
Do a little bit of back and buys.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to blast that. But when it comes to the products, what are you using? Are you just using aminos? Are you using protein? Are the Isoject? I know that I see you post a lot of protein, but what else?
Yeah, so mainly the protein, but definitely the BCAAs, especially like I feel like if a little bit of pre and post BCAAs is good for me. On a real down day, maybe I'll do some pre-workout, but typically I'm pretty ready to go, you know? So for me, I'll do like BCAAs, even intra training, right? So like maybe I did 30 minutes straight, I get a 30-second break, I'll pound a mouthful or so of some BCAAs, a little bit of sugar in there. I'll toss some extra salt as well. I'm a big fan of adding some sodium to the diet, you know, especially because like our training is pretty much all cardio, right? The only really strength training is the stuff that I do on my own.
Right.
So
that's how many days a week?
Oh, well, for jitsu or for strength?
No, strength training. Like when you're going in there and doing like bodybuilding workouts.
So like a hard bodybuilding workout where I'm going to get sore probably like twice a week.
Okay.
But I lift every day, you know, like I'm a big fan of using the muscles outside the gym that I don't use inside the gym, you know, like maybe we use legs a little bit because I'm in a wrestling stance, I'm squatted and stuff, but like, it's not the same as getting in depth with squats and like presses and stuff. But yeah, mainly BCAAs. I'll do some of the carbohydrates, but mainly BCAAs and protein. I'm a big protein guy. I feel like at the very least, counting calories is good, but at the very least, if you can get your protein for the day, kind of everything a little falls into part a little bit.
What's your favorite flavors?
Favorite flavors? Cinnamon crunch.
Every single person. Yeah.
Cinnamon crunch is fantastic. The s'mores is a good one.
Have you tried the new blueberry muffin?
No, but it's on my way. I got the text. They're sending it to me.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. And you guys had like a lemon one that was really good as well.
Lemon cake.
Lemon cake. Yes, yes. Oh, and the coffee. You had the macchiato, the mochaccino, something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, we had vanilla cold brew. Vanilla cold brew.
Yes.
Good. And that's coming back.
I'm a fan of like, I'll make like smoothies too. I'll toss some ice, almond butter, a little bit of milk, some fruits in there. Like, you know, I like mixing it up too. It's good to just pound it and smash it. Sometimes you got to enjoy, you know, a little Netflix show on, sip some Evo Jen, you're good.
Is that like date night for you?
It's every night's date night.
On that
You're
note,
here to hear first.
And on that note, man, I want to say thank you. Love having you part of the team. Just being able to watch your journey. I think that I'm looking forward to seeing how you're going to grow, get better, and be able to eventually win this. So,
yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm excited to get this workout in and gain some of your knowledge, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. So again, Austin, Nicky, and that's the truth.